This is a miniature world where only tiny people live. They are just a few centimeters tall, yet they possess abundant energy. Animals have become shop owners. Here, if you are liked by these shopkeepers, just by your face alone, they will warmly treat you to free food. And you can even receive 2 baskets full of goods at no cost. The bun-faced girl who is so well loved is named Mikochi. Because of her cute appearance and kind heart, she is extremely popular in the town. However, her actual home is far away from the town, in a small treehouse deep in the forest. Walking ahead to clear the path is her housemate and friend Hakume. Every time they finish shopping and return home, they must cross a long stretch of grass before reaching their little wooden house. This time, they had been busy all day, and the cabinet they bought was too big to fit through the door, so they had no choice but to leave it outside. Just as Mikochi was bowing her head and complaining, a grasshopper knocked on the window from outside. It was a special edition newspaper delivered directly to their door. One piece of news immediately caught Hakume's attention. It turned out that the extremely rare Yokodori bird had appeared again. According to legend, if you see it at dawn, you can make one wish come true, carrying the longing in your heart. Hakume had already prepared her luggage and was ready to head into the mountains to see the legendary bird. The two of them set off without even eating. After climbing over a steep slope, 2 large dung beetles appeared before them. And so, under the sunset, the two rode on the dung beetles while eating the vegetable soup Mikochi had brought along, heading up the mountain. It wasn't until the full moon rose high that they finally reached the mountaintop. After unloading from the large dung beetles and pushing through a patch of grass, what appeared before their eyes was a deep blue starry sky connected to layers of mountain ranges. A single peanut carried in their pocket became their late-night meal. However, they waited until nearly dawn, and the Yokodori bird still did not appear. Just as the 2 girls were about to eat the last of their food and plan to come back another time, a gigantic bird suddenly appeared behind them. It turned out the bird had been attracted by Mikochi's vegetable soup. After drinking the soup, the large bird spread its wings and flapped powerfully, blowing Mikochi and Hakume into the air, then immediately catching them. This was the Yokodori bird they had been longing for. Flying over peak after peak, the Yokodori carried them as they chased the dawn. Only then did they understand that the Yokodori bird could not grant wishes as people claimed, but it could guide them, showing the right path from darkness to light. In the annual singer selection contest, an exception was made, and 2 people were chosen. One was a talented wandering singer who received the most votes, and the other was a girl who lived deep in the mountains year-round, directly chosen by the townspeople. A perfectly ordinary girl, these 2 singers would perform at the Harvest Festival the next day. As soon as the announcement ended, Mikochi became the center of attention. This drove the officially recognized little singer on stage into a fury. Yet while some were saddened, others were worried. Mikochi could never have imagined that she would be chosen as a singer without even entering the contest. But Hakume beside her knew the reason clearly. Whenever Mikochi cleaned the house or soaked in the bath, she would unconsciously start singing, and her wonderful voice would always attract a crowd outside the house. Just as Mikochi was praying that there had been some mistake, a proud, haughty voice suddenly rang out. It was another little singer, Kanju. Upon arriving, she warned Mikochi not to get in her way during the Harvest Festival performance tomorrow. Unexpectedly, Mikochi wanted to decline the role because she truly wasn't good at singing in front of others. Hakume, standing beside her, said nothing more. As her friend, she understood Mikochi's difficulty. To help her relax, Hakume took Mikochi to a large tree outside the town. From there, they could clearly see the Tsukumogami floating in the sky. Hakume explained that the Harvest Festival was originally established long ago to praise the Tsukumogami, but as time passed, people gradually forgot about these 100-year-old objects in the sky. Even so, every year on the day of the Harvest Festival, the Tsukumogami would still come to watch the singers perform. After understanding this meaning, Mikochi realized that her singing not only brought joy to people, but also carried the long-held feelings of the Tsukumogami in distant places. After thinking for a while, she made up her mind. However, the next day, just as the performance was about to begin, singer Kanju suddenly caught a cold. It turned out that the night before, the proud little singer had practiced for 2 hours wearing nothing but a bath towel. As she struggled to maintain her dignity and pretend nothing was wrong, Mikochi handed her a jar of pear jam to soothe her throat. Before she realized it, Kanju gradually began to accept the small singer she had once looked down on, thanks to that warm jar of pear jam. And so, a concert began, with Kanju's deep, emotional harmonies combined with Mikochi's perfect high notes. The clear, melodious tune made passersby on the street stop in their tracks. The Tsukumogami in the sky also became joyful, and before long, all the objects along the road turned into Tsukumogami, dancing gracefully together to the gentle melody. In that moment, they finally felt the meaning of their own existence. After the perfect performance ended, Mikochi went for a walk through town and was enthusiastically surrounded by shop owners. Because in this tiny world, Mikochi was truly a top-class gourmet of the region. After guiding all the shops with their cooking, she and Hakume finally enjoyed a quiet evening. In this bustling town, together with the market as it prepared to close, they enjoyed the golden sunset and the whistling sea breeze, listening to the long, drawn-out song of the fishermen, preserving the most pleasant moment of all. In this wonderful instant, the girl struck the round drum beneath her hands, and 3 ancient dragons immediately came to life, taking on the task of building houses. everything had begun with a bag of gunpowder in the house. That day, Mikochi had just returned from the market. Just as the two were about to reach their door, the gunpowder inside the house was ignited by refracted light. Thick smoke suddenly billowed from the window. With no choice, they invited their all-purpose friend Sen to repair the damaged house. But Sen told them the repairs would take 2 days, meaning they would have nowhere to stay that night. Hakume suggested camping outside. With no other options, Mikochi agreed. Hakume, experienced in wandering, appeared extremely confident. The two rode a large beetle to the base of an orange tree. The tree was short and dense, providing better shelter from wind and rain. Just as Hakume was thinking about how to arrange things, Mikochi beside her had already started sneaking food. Hakume ran over, borrowed several red leaves from some caterpillars on the tree, carried them back under the orange tree, and marked each leaf. After punching holes at the marks and threading foxtail grass stems through them, a sturdy little tent was completed. Finally, ropes were tied to stones to secure both sides. When Mikochi returned from fetching water, still complaining about the lack of a kitchen, she discovered that the all-capable Hakume had already set up a stove for cooking. This filled Mikochi with admiration. After finishing the outdoor work, it was Mikochi's turn to show her skills. Hakume handled the heavy labor, grinding white rice. After all, their bodies were small, and they couldn't eat whole grains of rice as they were. After an hour of Mikochi's busy work, a sumptuous meal was ready. The two ate bowl after bowl until they were full. When night fell, Hakume dragged the reluctant Mikochi out of the tent, because tonight, the roof over their heads was no longer wood, but a deep blue, sparkling starry sky. The night breeze gently brushed through their hair, and of course, across the large fruit above their heads. After an unforgettable night, they returned home to find that Sen had finished repairing the house. To preserve the mystery of the front entrance, Sen led them in through the back door, making use of the tree hollow while reinforcing the existing structure. Sen even built an extra sunroom, naturally filled with light from all sides, and then came the front door decoration she was so proud of. At this moment, the other two had a bad feeling, and indeed it was incredibly cool. Truly worthy of the all-purpose king of tinkering, it was unmistakably Sen's style. From the outside, it was just an ordinary glass sphere, but in fact, it was the heart on a skeleton. As long as it was installed in the center of the skeleton and connected with wires to a specially made glass horn, a single breath would make the skeleton move according to instructions. This was an experiment in artificial life that Sen was researching. Therefore, everything inside the turtle shell where they currently lived was operated by these light bulbs. This naturally included the enormous ancient jade fish that Hakume had almost caught earlier. However, Sen explained that the operating method of this ancient fish was even more advanced. The glass sphere on its body worked by attaching a sub-device to another living creature, using that creature's heartbeat to make it function, also known as wireless control. Sen said she had attached the sub-device to a fish in the pond. But just as she finished speaking, Hakume was rammed into the water by the ancient fish. After rescuing Hakume, they discovered that the sub-device had been spat out of her mouth. Thinking back, it turned out she had eaten the fish she had caught, swallowing the sub-device along with it. So it was only natural that the ancient fish charged at her. The next day, they received an apology gift from little Sen, 2 large, plump fish, carefully chilled. After taking care of that, Hakume, as usual, went to do her regular maintenance work. Her coworker was someone who insisted on being called Master, but never actually taught her anything. A sardine named Iwashi. Today's task was repairing the large windmill in town. Because the damaged part was the internal brake wheel, only Hakume with her small body could go inside to fix it. Just as Master Iwashi was still considering whether the dangerous, tall, and narrow interior was suitable for Hakume, she had already put on her safety gear and was ready to go up. With the two working together, they quickly completed the repairs. At that moment, heavy rain began to fall. Just as Hakume was about to pack up her tools and climb down, the hammer in her pouch suddenly fell. The scaffolding had not been securely fastened. Hearing the noise, Master Iwashi immediately ran to the windmill. Although Hakume had grabbed onto the safety rope, the strength of one hand was not enough to hold on for long, and the master rushing from outside could not get inside. In the end, completely exhausted, Hakume had no choice but to let go at the critical moment when her life was hanging by a thread. Fortunately, her master smashed through the window and rushed in, managing to catch the tiny Hakume in time. Seeing that her master had damaged his shoes while saving her, a feeling of deep self-blame surged in Hakume's heart. All of this was seen through by her master. He simply took off his sandals and placed them into Hakume's hands, because he knew that doing so would help ease the guilt weighing on the little Hakume. Looking at her master's tall back, Hakume hugged the sandals and trudged home alone, unaware that Mikochi was worrying about her back at home. Seeing that Hakume was still brooding over the matter of the shoes, Mikochi became angry and shoved her straight into the bathroom, ordering her not to come out until she had finished bathing. Gentleness is actually always around us. It may be a small action that drives away sorrow, an accidental pat on the head, or long-lasting companionship. In order to join the largest builders guild in the region, the little girl woke up early and stayed up late every day, following her master to construction sites to do unpaid chores. With her tiny body, she had to carry tools even larger than herself, yet she never complained even once. During her free moments, she would take out her small notebook and quietly study and learn beside them. The greatest challenge to entering the guild was gaining the approval of the white-haired man before her. He was the guild master of the West Wind, the one who commanded the entire construction project. Although Hakume had previously sought out the guild master to ask to join, when faced with this fearless little girl, the guild master had bluntly refused her. However, this did not discourage Hakume. That day, she brought along a plan she had worked on all night and went to see the guild master. She originally intended to offer some suggestions about reinforcing the wall, but the guild master immediately saw through her thoughts. Just as the deputy guild master, a cat, was about to help Hakume carry out her plan, Hakume refused. She knew that a construction project could not proceed without the guild master and the deputy's command, and she could not let her own actions affect the progress of the work. After bidding her master farewell, she obediently listened to the guild master and went home to catch up on sleep. The next day at the construction site, Hakume was once again full of energy, helping her master grind tools. At that moment, the guild master suddenly walked over, took out his own chisel, and asked Hakume to sharpen it for him. Under everyone's gaze, Hakume once again refused the guild master's request. She explained that her master had entrusted her with tools as precious as his own life because he trusted her. But she herself had not yet earned the guild master's trust, so she dared not casually sharpen his tools. Just as everyone was worrying for Hakume, the guild master said that what had just happened was merely a test he had set for her, because this fearless little girl had made him see her in a completely different light. Although the words that followed involved a slight misunderstanding toward Hakume, the atmosphere grew silent. The next day, Hakume officially began working and quickly blended in with everyone. Mikochi also came to the site to help the guild master's wife cook. At this time, a massive stone forming part of the wall shattered due to long-term erosion. In order to quarry a new giant stone, the guild master had no choice but to pause and consider a solution. Hakume stepped forward and offered her idea, to use a pressure method to create cracks in the stone for extraction. After receiving the guild master's approval, everyone immediately got to work. Once all preparations were complete, the guild master took the sharpened chisel from Hakume's hands. Before everyone's eyes, he aimed straight at the crack in the stone and struck decisively with a hammer. Thus, a project that should have taken several days was perfectly completed, thanks to Hakume's efforts and everyone's cooperation, just like a glowing sunset. This is a miniature world where the average height is only 9 centimeters, yet the food that the tiny people eat is sized according to the proportions of the normal world. Therefore, even a very small grain of rice must be ground up before they can eat it. However, when traveling in nature, they face even greater dangers. A moment of carelessness can lead them to encounter creatures several times their size, or even dozens of times larger. That day, the two tiny friends went into the forest to gather wild vegetables as usual, unaware that they had entered the territory of the local birds of prey, the domain of Orochi. Just as they happily finished gathering and prepared to return with their baskets full, a deep, muffled cry suddenly echoed. Looking up, they saw an Orochi with enormous wings spread wide, staring at them with piercing eyes. Mikochi was so frightened that she fainted and fell off a cliff. Hakume hurried down to check on her. The Orochi did not pursue them. Hakume hastily threw aside their belongings and rushed to Mikochi's side. Fortunately, Mikochi was unharmed. Only her leg was injured, leaving her unable to walk for the time being. Luckily, there was no restriction on carrying weight while climbing up, allowing Hakume to safely carry Mikochi into a cave. The two struggled inside and decided they would have to stay there for the night. After settling Mikochi, Hakume still decided to go back to retrieve the items they had dropped. As dusk was about to fall, a piece of fruit suddenly tumbled out of the full basket. Just as Hakume bent down to pick it up, an overwhelming presence descended upon her. The gigantic Orochi was right beside her. Hakume intended to draw her knife to fight, but she was frozen stiff just from Orochi turning its head. The bird suddenly leaned close to Hakume's face. Facing this enormous creature at such close range for the first time, Hakume could only tremble, clutching her knife in preparation to resist. Unexpectedly, Orochi was staring at something beside her, the piece of meat that had fallen from the basket. After realizing that Hakume was willing to give it the meat, Orochi snatched it up and flew away, leaving the tiny Hakume standing there in fear. After returning to the cave, Hakume immediately hugged Mikochi tightly. No matter how strong she usually seemed, when faced with hardship, she was still a girl who needed comfort. After learning what Hakume had gone through, Mikochi was also extremely frightened and worried. But at least now, everything was fine. After calming down, the two set up a pot and cooked inside the cave. When they finished eating and were chatting, the cry of Orochi echoed outside the cave once more. This time, unwilling to let Hakume go alone, Mikochi decided to go out with her. But when they reached the cave entrance, they discovered that Orochi showed no hostility at all, and there were many fruits placed beside it. It turned out this was a gift from their large friend, a return gesture for the meat. This silent gift of gratitude was the greatest comfort and surprise for the little ones. There was a strange hair salon made from an ostrich egg. The hairstylist inside was a heavy drinker who served customers on a whim, even when clients came to her door on their own. That day, when Hakume went to the mountain to pick raspberries, she happened to encounter this wondrous little egg house. Just as she was wondering what it was, the hairstylist appeared in front of her and introduced her salon. Faced with Hakume's suspicious expression, the hairstylist maintained an attitude of, "Believe it or not, it's up to you." But when Hakume said she wanted a haircut, the stylist mysteriously agreed. She led Hakume into the egg. Inside were hairdressing tools and personal items everywhere. Although Hakume, being a repairer, was curious about why the egg house did not topple over, she was immediately interrupted by the stylist, who asked what hairstyle she wanted. Unexpectedly, Hakume blurted out, "Anything is fine." This ignited the stylist's surging passion. Even though the stylist repeatedly tried to persuade her under irresistible temptation, after calming down and thinking carefully, Hakume decided on short hair, saying it would look cute. This delighted the short-haired stylist immensely. After being rewarded with a small candy by Jada, the haircut officially began. Although she failed to persuade Hakume to get a mohawk, Jada, who had an intense obsession with the mohawk style, kept enthusiastically recommending it to Hakume's housemate Mikochi. She even suggested Mikochi get a mohawk as well. Even when Hakume merely praised her for being hardworking, Jada remained thrilled. No one knew how much time had passed until a faint mohawk whisper reached Hakume's ears. When she woke up, she discovered she now had a neat, boyish short haircut. She began to look at the strange Jada in a different light. After chatting happily for a while, Jada finally told Hakume why the egg house did not fall over. It was because she had installed a screw at the bottom of the egg. The next day, Hakume told her close friend Konju and introduced this strange hair salon. But today, Jada flatly refused. The reason was that her homemade lemon wine had gone bad, leaving her with no motivation at all. This drove the arrogant Konju into a rage. Fortunately, after tasting the wine, Mikochi immediately pointed out the reason for the failure and said she could teach Jada how to make a new batch. This rekindled Jada's enthusiasm. So everyone got to work at once. Because she wanted a haircut so badly, Konju was full of energy. Under Mikochi's guidance, a large jar of lemon wine was soon completed. Finally, following the rule, no drinking while cutting hair and no cutting hair while drinking, Jada styled Konju's hair into a cute braided hairstyle, like a little fairy on an ancient tree in spring. Overnight, many residents suddenly moved into the old tree. Faced with these suddenly appearing doors, the original residents of the tree, Hakume and Mikochi, were quite confused. To investigate, they opened the first door and found a group of cute little creatures inside. Knocking on the second door, a friendly little bird poked its head out. However, this was not yet the biggest surprise. Next, they unexpectedly encountered a Western-style restaurant. It wasn't until they knocked on the fourth neighbor's door that they met a small beetle girl who could communicate normally. Wearing a pink bow, she was clearly an adorable girl. When faced with Hakume and Mikochi's questions, the beetle girl answered shyly, as if meeting the owner of an inn. It turned out she had thought this was a city and believed she would not be welcomed. But to her surprise, Hakume and Mikochi warmly welcomed her. After saying goodbye to the beetle girl, the two ran into a small problem. The ladder leading home had broken. Hakume didn't mind and jumped straight down. Just as she was about to tell Mikochi to jump and let her catch her, Mikochi, being timid, didn't dare to jump at all. So Hakume decided to go back to find tools to fix it, leaving Mikochi waiting there. At that moment, a flying squirrel selling drinks appeared before Mikochi. With the help of the little flying squirrel, Mikochi was able to get down safely and reunite with Hakume. That day, the little beetle girl suddenly came to Mikochi's house to ask for help. As a country beetle, her dream was to enjoy life in high-end houses in the city. The first step was to buy beautiful furniture for her home. To fulfill her wish, Hakume and Mikochi took her to the town center to shop. They went to a furniture store, where the shop owner introduced several pieces in a city style. Although Hakume felt these items were impractical for the beetle girl was blinded by vanity and insisted on buying them anyway. After returning home and arranging everything as she wished, the beetle girl looked extremely happy, so Hakume and Mikochi said nothing more. However, after that farewell, the beetle girl did not visit them for a long time. Worried, the two went to her house. After knocking for a long time with no response, Hakume hurriedly opened the door and found the beetle girl lying motionless. Upon closer inspection, they realized she was simply too hungry to move. Mikochi quickly brought food, and from the beetle girl they learned that the cabinet handle had broken, preventing her from getting food. The chair was too tall, causing her to bump into the ceiling when flying up, and sleeping on the newly bought bed often gave her nightmares. Once again, the beetle girl relied on Hakume's help. With their assistance, she replaced everything with her original belongings. At that moment, she finally understood that a flashy, superficial life could not bring true happiness. A happy life often begins from the present. What is it like to live in a world ruled by animals? Here, gorillas sell miso, grasshoppers deliver newspapers, frogs become TV hosts, martins no longer steal but instead change careers to become repairmen, and when you're thirsty outdoors, you might encounter a flying squirrel selling drinks. On a day of light rain, a little rabbit was setting up her tent. Just as she was pondering whether to eat carrots or daikon for dinner, two girls suddenly emerged from a small treehouse nearby and invited her inside to take shelter from the rain. It turned out the rabbit was a traveling photographer. She had been everywhere and taken all kinds of photos, but she never photographed people facing the camera directly, believing that such photos looked more natural. She had planned to stay and take more photos, but the sudden downpour interrupted her plans. Hakume suggested that if the rabbit didn't mind, she could photograph the two of them. Mikochi tied up her long hair and took on the appearance of a gentle wife and caring mother, her natural demeanor immediately catching the rabbit's interest. However, when it came time to shoot, Mikochi had a habit of looking into the lens, unable to resist glancing at it, making it impossible to achieve the desired effect. Although the rabbit failed to take any great photos, she was still warmly treated by Mikochi. The three of them chatted happily until midnight. When they parted the next day, Hakume suggested asking the flying squirrel to deliver drinks and take a photo of the three of them together. For the first time taking a photo while looking straight into the lens, the little rabbit appeared especially awkward. But encouraged by Mikochi and Hakume, she bravely faced the camera. Unexpectedly, the first photo featuring her face captured her happiest smile. What does it mean to boldly capture the perfect angle? The group known as the Veterans all lived in a building called the Honey Inn. The founder was this bearded old man. It was said that in order to build this inn, he allowed many species to live together. Thus, the tenants ranged from artists to delinquents. The so-called veterans were simply those who had lived in the inn for a long time. This time, the reason they abducted Kanju was because Kanju had been invited by a newcomer at the inn to perform. Hakume and Mikochi also arrived to get ready to watch the preparations. At that moment, a panicked squirrel ran over to inform them that the stage for the performance had already been dismantled by the old regulars of the tavern. When they went upstairs to reason with those regulars, they were stopped by a fierce pink lizard. Hakume, quick-witted, realized that acting recklessly now would only make things worse, so she led everyone back outside first. At the same time, the group of old regulars seized the opportunity to corner Kanju. Just as Hakume and the others chased after them, an old man with a thick beard blocked their way. He invited Hakume and Mikochi into a tavern and treated them to fragrant honey mead. It turned out that this bearded man was the second-generation owner of the tavern. He told them that in the past, whenever disputes broke out in the tavern, the former owner would always use a magical drink to resolve the conflict between both sides. However, he had never been able to rediscover the recipe for that drink. Therefore, he hoped Mikochi, as a cook, could help recreate it to settle this dispute as well. To save their friend Kanju, Mikochi agreed. They went to the former owner's secret wine cellar to search for clues, but by chance ran into the pink lizard who had cornered Kanju earlier. In the ensuing chaos, an oil lamp above Mikochi suddenly fell. Fortunately, the pink lizard caught it with its tail just in time, averting danger. But immediately after that, it threw the lamp to the ground and escaped. In truth, the group led by the pink lizard were not bad people at all. Just look at how Kanju was treated during the so-called kidnapping. Was that really something villains would do? They took care of her as if carrying a precious ancestor on a palanquin. In the end, when Kanju asked whether their purpose had been to stop the concert, the answer was completely different from what she had imagined. This lovable group of old regulars had merely wanted to attract the attention of the newcomers and play a harmless prank. After all, in this place, there were no truly bad people. That was exactly what the tavern owner had once told the bearded old man. The Honey Tavern had no rules at all. The purpose of creating this place was to allow anyone without a home to live freely and unrestrained, as long as they did not break the law. Meanwhile, under the joint research of Mikochi, Hakume, and the bearded old man, they brought the revised bottle of wine to the pink lizard. Just as mentioned before, in the Honey Tavern, there was no conflict that this bottle of wine could not resolve. In the end, both sides reconciled, amid the gentle singing of Kanju, spending a harmonious and wonderful night together. This was a glass submersible, about to descend to a depth of 1 meter underwater. To start it, all one had to do was tap on a hand lever. Before long, clear river water flowed over the top of the submersible. A successful dive was completed. Everyone was immersed in the beautiful underwater world, except Hakume, who was afraid of water and began to feel unwell. Unlike the others, who were there for leisure, Sen had come as a scientist to collect data. Seeing Kanju, who was in charge of drumming, start to slack off, Sen sternly criticized her and immediately returned to her research, leaving Kanju standing there with an innocent expression. When they descended to a depth of 50 centimeters, the submersible entered an area thick with seaweed. While everyone was busy with their own tasks, Kanju suddenly became excited and began pounding hard on the hand lever. As the drumming grew faster and more intense, the submersible also began to dive rapidly. Mikochi tried to stop her, but Kanju seemed possessed and could not stop until, as the saying goes, the next layer was rocky and the deepest point. To celebrate the successful dive and relieve some tension, Mikochi took out snacks she had made herself. Even though Hakume looked weak and helpless lying there, her mouth kept chewing energetically. Just when everyone had eaten and drunk their fill and was happily preparing to head home, after a final drumbeat, the submersible suddenly stopped moving. No matter how hard Kanju tried to drum, it would not budge. Left with no choice, Sen put on a diving suit and went outside to check the problem. Strangely, she found that all the hardware was functioning normally. Inside the cabin, Kanju was on the verge of tears, frightened and convinced the fault lay with her. Thankfully, Mikochi's delicious food comforted her and helped her calm down. Sen soon returned and told everyone that due to an issue with the ancient fish submersible itself, they might never be able to return to the surface. Hearing this, Kanju resolved to see things through and immediately grabbed Mikochi, singing at the top of her lungs. At that moment, the submersible miraculously began to move. The two took a deep breath and continued singing. As their voices echoed around them, the submersible's power grew stronger. Gradually, even Sen, who was usually so cold, joined in. Finally, with Hakume's last note, the submersible shot upward and burst out of the water. This is a tiny world where even a radish can weigh 1,000 pounds. For people only 9 centimeters tall, even a small fish can provide food for months, so food is rarely a concern. Clothing, however, is another matter. In a world where many species live together, differences in size and body structure have given rise to diverse clothing styles, and every outfit must be tailor-made. Mikochi, the town's versatile craftswoman, went to her friend Sen's house one day, determined to make an outfit that suited Sen's cool style. But trouble arose immediately. The fabrics Mikochi brought were all too light in color, none matching Sen's cold demeanor. Even the cool-toned colors felt unsuitable. Not wanting to trouble Mikochi, Sen was about to pick one at random when Hakume spoke up from behind. Mikochi, who always pursued perfection, wholeheartedly agreed. And so, without delay, Hakume and Sen went out to gather dye ingredients, while Mikochi stayed home to design the clothing pattern. She entered her ultra-serious mode, revising the design again and again. Hakume and Sen found the acorns needed for the dye, then rode Sen's small skeleton frame back. Halfway through, learning that more acorns would produce a darker color, they turned back and gathered even more. Next came the busy crafting period. After mixing the dye, they simply heated the fabric in it for 30 minutes, stirred it evenly, and then hung it out to dry. Under Mikochi's skillful hands, once the last loose thread was cut, a dark-colored outfit perfectly suited to Sen was completed. Even Sen, who disliked drawing attention, was delighted and careful not to dirty her new clothes. That evening, when seeing Mikochi and Hakume off, Sen still couldn't bear to wear it. But late at night, as she was about to sip some wine, a thought struck her. Life always needs a touch of ceremony. What could be better than wine-induced warmth paired with a beautiful new outfit? As an excellent angler, a perfect cast was essential. With all her strength, the girl made a powerful cast and successfully caught the first camellia flower of the day, reaching the famous fishing spot at Canoe Beach. At 4 in the morning, Hakume took Mikochi to the station. According to the wolf conductor's announcement, the train was about to depart. Everyone lined up to have their tickets checked. After boarding, Hakume discovered that although her and Mikochi's seat numbers were adjacent, they were not next to each other. Luckily, a thoughtful attendant noticed the issue and changed their seats to a paired set at the front. After refueling, the train officially departed. Since they had arrived too early and hadn't eaten breakfast, they went to the dining car. Mikochi enjoyed the scenery outside the window, and Hakume thoughtfully opened it for her. While they were admiring the view, the train reached a transfer station famous for its tea dumplings. The tea there was sealed in spherical jars before drinking. After enjoying the tea, they continued their journey. The next stop was the final station, Kanoka, requiring passage through a long tunnel. Once the attendant turned on the lights, the carriage was instantly illuminated. In this quiet moment, after drinking a hot cup of coffee, Hakume noticed Mikochi had fallen asleep. She quietly took the coffee from Mikochi's hand, drank it, threw the cup away, bought another, and returned to her seat to read silently. Soon they arrived at Canoe Beach. Despite heavy rain, they donned small raincoats and went fishing by the river. After 3 hours, they still hadn't caught anything. As the weather grew colder, Hakume suggested returning to the cabin to rest. Although Mikochi didn't like fishing, she had accompanied Hakume all along, listening attentively to her explanations. Even when things went wrong, Hakume patiently helped her. In the end, Mikochi let a small fish escape and nearly fell into the river, only to be saved when Hakume grabbed her head in time. Though they returned empty-handed, the joy of the journey remained full.